Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala program. Today we are going to see the origin and development of Kavyas in Sanskrit literature. I am Professor Tyagarajan, the Professor and Head of the Department of Sanskrit, Presidency College, Chennai. I would like to inform you that prior to know about the Kavyas, which happen to be the part of your paper on aesthetics and fine arts, I would like to just brush up the basic development of Kavyas right from the Vedas. In the Veda, there is a term called Kavi. Kaving Kavinam Upamasravastamam. It is a very popular rig from the Rig Veda. Kavi means a person who is able to create. Kavayati means creation. So, anything created through verbal expression is called Kavya. It is stated by the rhetoricians as Kavehe Karma Kavyam. A Kavya or a literature is the product of Kavi. That means a creator. So he is the person with all his imagination produces something artistically in order to make the readers understand. Now, it has got a background, very big background. In Sanskrit, you have got three types of Kavyas. They are called Shravya Kavya, Drishya Kavya and Champu Kavya. Shravya Kavya means there is a Kavya that is fit to be read and heard. Drishya Kavya means a representation or a depiction or an illustration given to the audience through dramas, dramatic presentation is called Drishya Kavya. They are called Rupakas as well as Uparupakas. And the third variety happens to be Champu Kavyas. That is the mixture of prose and poetry, regarding which we will see the contents and the presentation by the authors in the subsequent modules. Now, to start with, we will know how the Kavyas originated in the ancient period. Is there actually Kavyas existed in the ancient period? Now we will see. Before that, in this module, what we are going to know is that there are the types of literature that we have already seen. I have just narrated to you the origin of Kavyas and about the works of Ashwagosha, Kalidasa and other poets, and about the poetic expressions or literary values or the presentation in the inscriptions too. We call it as core typics because in the history of literature you find different stages of literatures. Initially, we find Vedic literature, which comprises of the study of Vedas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, and afterwards you find the Smritis and the Sutras, Kalpa Sutras and all. And afterwards you come across Puranas, and then there is Puranic literature, and afterwards you have got Itihasas, which happen to be the classical literature. They are all classics. Those literatures are being followed by the court epics. These court epics mostly take the contents from the earlier literatures and then present it in a poetical way so that people can enjoy the ornamental expressions of the poets, at the same time understanding the content of it in a beautiful way. In the Sahitya Darpana, a work written by Vishwanatha, there is a saying, Chaturvarga Palapraptihi Sukad Alpadiyamapi Kabyadeva Yadastena Tat Surupam Nigadyate. This means that Kavya bestows the fruit of salvation. Chaturvarga Palaprapti, even all the four vargas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, all the four could be easily obtained by reading a Kavya. He says further, Sukhad Alpadiyamapi. So, without straining much, by reading Vedanta, you need not attain salvation. Simply by reading it. And Alpadiyamapi, even though one happens to be a dullard, he can easily attain the benefits of the Purusharthas, Chaturvarga, that is Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. Therefore, in the court epics, the poets have always attempted to give this essence through their writings. And there were many writers, Kalidasa, Buddhaghosa and others to start with. And the question is that whether they had inspiration to compose Kavyas apart from Valmiki. Therefore, we will now try to trace out the origin of the Kavya in Sanskrit. There are specimens at the earliest stages. Patanjali, the author of Mahabharata, refers to certain poems. The representation of some place like Kamsavada, Balibandha, etc. Panini, the great grammarian, is said to have authored a Mahakavya called Patala Vijaya or Jambavati Vijaya. The theme of the poem is Krishna's conquest over Jambavan in Patala and his marriage with Jambavati, his daughter. Extracts and citations from the poem are available, though the work as such has not yet been discovered. Next, we come to the period of 2nd century BC, when the Vararuchi, the composer of the Vartikas of Panini Sutras. The Vartika is a simple commentary wherein he is trying to explain the sutras. So, during that period, he says, the Vararuchi gives the stray stanzas preserved in the anthologies. And he says, and of a poem called Charumati. This shows that the Kavya form existed long before the 2nd century BC. But the major works of this class, which are now available belong to a period later than 4th or 5th century BC. First poet we recognize in Sanskrit literature happened to be Ashwagosha. He is the predecessor of Kalidasa, who wrote Buddha Charita, a great Mahakavya, which gives the best poetic account of the life of Buddha. Then Basa, Saumilla and Kaviputra are the dramatists who are referred to as the predecessor of Kalidasa. Generally, it is considered that the dramatic form is a further development over the Kavya form, and therefore Kavyas ought to have existed long before. See, by tradition, Ashwagosha being the contemporary of King Kanishka, he must be placed towards the close of the 1st century AD. The Buddha Charita, the Saundarananda and the Sutralankara are mentioned among his Kavya works. A few shorter poems like Gandhi Stotra Ghata and a drama known as Sariputra Prakarana are also said to have been composed by him. Of these, the Buddha Charita is the most important. Regarding Buddha Charita, we must know that it contains 28 cantos in which Ashwagosha describes elaborately the birth of Buddha, his early life, his renunciation, his successful fight with Mara, the tempter, and the preachings of Buddha. We have only 17 cantos of the genuine work. This occupies an important place in Sanskrit literature because of the elaborate ornamentation of poetic art which contains and which is so much developed in later Kavyas. There are important points of similarity between this poem and Kalidasa's Raghuvamsa, not only in the general manner of the development, but also in style and ideas. So, it is held by many critics that Kalidasa was much influenced by Ashwagosha. See, Kalidasa is generally held as a great poet. He has been the national poet of India and the brightest star in the firmament of Indian poetry for the last 2000 years. He has been unanimously acclaimed as the greatest Sanskrit poet. His genius has been by poets, critics and the literary public acknowledged, appreciated and admired alike. Kalidasa enjoys a high rank among global poets. In this connection, I would like to just give you an anecdote with regard to Kalidasa and his greatness. He is unique in his own way. That was recognized even during his period. Generally, poets are not recognized during the period. Any poet, not only poet, any writer for that matter. But Kalidasa enjoys the privilege of enjoying the popularity even during his lifetime. There is a sloka, Pura Kavinam Ganana Prasange Kanishtika Adhishtita Kavi Kalidasa Adyapi Tattulya Kave Rabhavat Anamikasa Artavati Babuva. Pura Kavinam Ganana Prasange. When people started counting the number of Kavis, who is a Kavi? First, Pura Kavinam Ganana Prasange Kanishtika Adhishtita Kavi Kalidasa. They started counting first with the little finger. First they mentioned the name of Kalidasa. Then they wanted to count another poet who could be equal to Kalidasa. There was no poet at all. Therefore, they could not count the second finger, which is called Anamika. See, in Sanskrit, you got the names of the fingers. Angushtam, this finger is called with this finger. This is Madhyama because it happens to be in the middle. This is called Anamika. This is called Kanishtika, a little finger. So first they placed Kalidasa in the little finger, Kalidasa. Then second name they could not count, Anamika. Because Kalidasa, the sloka says, why this finger got the name as Anamika? Because they could not count another name, it became Anamadeya. So Anamika sa Arthavati Babuva. That's what is stated. And another account also is connected to Kalidasa, wherein of course, whether these are all mere narratives or in order to enhance the merit of Kalidasa, they brought out this anecdote. We do not know. So once Kalidasa and Dandin vied with each other to claim that they are the poets, went in search of Saraswati, goddess Saraswati, and prayed before her, and then asked her, who is the poet in between them? Who is the actual poet? Of course, chronologically, both are of different ages. But however, for the sake of explaining the merit of Kalidasa, this particular verse would help to understand the significance or the greatness of both. It appears, Goddess Saraswati said, Kavir Dandi, Kavir Dandi. That was the pronouncement by Saraswati. When both of them asked, who is Kavi? Kavir Dandi, Kavir Dandi was said by Saraswati. That means only Dandi is a Kavi. Then Kalidasa was very much worried and he was disappointed because he thought that Saraswati would prefer him to be the poet for his genius. Then Kalidasa asked, if you say Dandin is a poet, then who am I? Then Saraswati said, Tvamevaham, Tvamevaham. That means you are none other than myself. I am yourself. So that means Goddess Saraswati herself as incarnated in the form of Kalidasa. So the verse signifies that. So the greatness of Kalidasa is established all through in the literature and he is highly meritorious, no doubt about it. See, works of Kalidasa. If you are taking up the works of Kalidasa, what are the works that he has done? There are about 41 works which are attributed to Kalidasa. Of course, mainly we get only handful of works. But for the world famous work are undoubtedly composed by him. 2 lyric poems, Ritu Samhara and Meghaduta. Some people say it is Megha Sandesa also. So 2 Mahakavyas, Kumara Sambhavam and Raghuvamsham also written by him. Apart from that, there are 3 plays written by him which we will come across when we are going to deal with in another modules, dramas in Sanskrit. So he has written Malavikagnimtram, Vikramorusyam and Abhigyana Shakuntalam. See, in the Ritu Samhara, of course, some of the researchers deny that it is not authored by Kalidasa and all. However, most of the people have unanimously accepted that Ritu Samhara happens to be the work of Kalidasa. It is a lyrical poem and it appears that he wrote this work first. See, everything is narrated, the natural scenes, the floral beauty of 6 seasons, that is Grishma, Varsha, Hemanta, Shishira and Vasanta are all picturized in this work. And while reading this Ritu Samhara, one will admire all the expressions of Kalidasa while narrating the seasons. he depicts, he brings all the surroundings in front of your eyes. And in my opinion, Kalidasa has the fascination over the spring season, because in all other seasons he has described about so many natural things, and in no place he asked his wife to come and see the beautiful scene before him. But in spring season he says, Sarvam priye charutaram vasante. He says, O priye, O my dear beloved, come and see the scene that I am going to describe before you. You must enjoy. There is a general tendency of the spouse to enjoy the scene, at the same time to feel that my spouse should also see the scene which I have enjoyed it. Therefore, Kalidasa calls his wife to observe the surroundings, the natural scenes of spring season. So, he has more fascination, we can say, over spring season, which is described very beautifully in Ritusamhara. And with regard to Meghaduta, we have got an anecdote. See, it is generally believed, of course these are all mere stories only, but however, there is a belief that Kalidasa was an illiterate, and he had an occasion to marry the princess, and when the princess felt disappointed over his education, asked Kalidasa, Asti Kaschid Vagartah. Then for that, Kalidasa went to Kali temple in Ujjaini and prayed before her for getting the skill of writing the poetry, and after getting the sanction from the Kali, he started composing, and it happens to be that is Meghaduta happens to be the third composition, because he wrote for the first word Asti Kumarasambhava. Regarding Kumarasambhava, we will discuss. Asti Uttarasyam Dishi Devatatma Himalayo Nama Naghadi Rajaha Purvaparo Varinidhi Vagahya Sthita Prithivya Eva Manadandaha. He described, making it as a vastu, the Himalayan mountain, the father of Parvati. Second, he wrote Meghaduta, Kaschit Kanta Viraga Guruna Swadikarat Pramattaha Shapena Astangamita Muhimam Varshavugyena Vattuhu Yakshachakre Janakatanaya Snana Punyodageshu Snigdaschaya Tarushu Vasatim Ramagiri Asrameshu. And for the third word, he composed Raghumsha, wherein he says Vagarta Viva Samprukto Vagarta Pradipattaye Jagata Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwaro. So, in order to show that he has attained the mastery over the poetic expression, he has used the words as the Kaschid Vagartaha in all the three kavyas. And with regard to Meghaduta, he is the first device of sending the cloud as a messenger to his beloved by a Yaksha, who was exiled by a king in Ramagiri. See, on the pattern of imitation of Meghaduta, more than 100 Sandesha Kavyas have been composed mostly in Mandakranta meter, but none equals Meghaduta. Next, we are coming across Kumarasambhava written by Kalidasa. That's what I said. Asti Uttarasyam Dishi Devatatma Himalayo nama Nagadirajaha Purvaparo Varinidivagahya Stita Prithibhya Eva Manadandaha. He starts like that. He starts with a plot. See, in Sanskrit literature, to begin a work, you got three kinds. That is, Ashihi, Vastunirdesha, and Namaskriya. Ashihi, Namaskriya, Vastunirdesha are the three patterns through which a poet is expected to begin his work. And here, in Astittarasya, he directly enters into the plot, Vastu. He describes about Himalayan mountain, which is surrounded by the oceans. Purva Aparo Varinidhi Vagahya. In both east and western direction, the Himalayan mountain is covered by the waters, and it appears as a measuring rod of the entire world. That is the expression that Kalidasa gives in that particular verse. So, in this work, the very name Kumarasambhava itself denotes the birth of Kumara. The poet has described the penance of Parvati to win Shiva's love, their wedlock finally, resulting in the birth of Kumara Kartikeya, is described in this particular work. And Kartikeya, the birth of Kartikeya, the warrior god, we all know, killed the demon Taraka. Next, we come across Raghuvamsha. As I told you already, Vagartaviyo Samprukto, Vagarta Pratipattiye, Jagata Pitaro Vande Parvati Parameshwaro. That is a word that starts. This particular verse is being dealt with by so many rhetoricians, poeticians. How beautifully he has chosen the word Vagartaviyo Samprukto in order to explain both Shiva and Parvati. There is the matter and the spirit or the energy. How they are close they are. They are inseparable. So it is an inseparable compound also, people say. So Parvati and Parameshwara are inseparable like word and the meaning. You cannot separate the meaning from the word, and without meaning there is no word at all. So both are combined together. So Parvati, he offers his salutation to Parvati and Parameshwara, and people have started interpreting it in a different way also by telling Parvati, instead of Parvati Parameshwaro, people say Parvati Parameshwaro, Parvatyaha Patihi Shiva, and Ramayaha Patihi Rameshwara Ishwaraha Rameshwaraha. That means Kalidasa salutes both Shiva and Vishnu also along with their spouses. The interpretation goes on. But in Raghuvamsha, the poet had dealt with the heroic deeds of the Solar dynasty of the ancient Indian kings in 19 cantos. It begins with the description of a king, Dilipa, and ends with the narrative of Agnivarna. It abounds in beautiful descriptions and narratives. Name a few: a Goseva by Dilipa, that is, he follows Nandini, the cow, the daughter of Kamadhenu, and the description how he followed very sincerely with all austerities had been narrated by Kalidasa. And apart from that, you got Raghu's Digvijaya also had been mentioned there, described, and the Indumati, Swayamvara, Ajavilapa are all significant descriptions in this work. And this Indumati Swayamvara, in this Indumati Swayamvara alone, Kalidasa has described how during the Swayamvara time, the kings were all in rows waiting for her marriage, waiting for her approval for the marriage. And it appears, Kalidasa says, it appears that when the light is being taken, the objects in front of it will be bright, and the moment the light passes on, the objects will become dark. Like that, when Indumati went just for the sake of Swayanvara, the disappointed kings became black, as if shadowed by darkness. So such a description given by Kalidasa has given a title for him as Deepashika Kalidasaha. He is no doubt a poet of par excellence. He knows a lot of various systems of philosophy. He knows the religious law, politics, economics, dramaturgy, erotics, and then 64 arts, music, fine arts, etc. And apart from that, scientific subjects like zoology, plant science, etc. Because we are able to have descriptions of all these things in these works. Numerous references to all the aforesaid Vidyas are so efficiently included in his work that they bring the high expertise of the poet. So Kalidasa is noted for his brevity, simplicity of expression, and the easy flowing of language. His writings are adorned with similes and paralleled for their charm and appropriateness. That's why it is said, Upama Kalidasasya. It means he is meant for bringing out similes. No one can excel him in bringing out similes. Next, regarding Deepashika Kalidasa, I narrated during the Swayamvara of Indumati how Kalidasa narrated the particular situation when Indumati was to choose her spouse. And as I told you, that particular description itself was applauded by many poets, and therefore he gained the title Deepashika Kalidasa. Before going into the style, you should also know that he has been hailed as the Shakespeare of India. That means he has a lot of vocabulary in his hand and observation, and the easy, lucid presentation of the views, relatable to all, and the poets are generally classified as a person rendering the pakas. That means how he is using or making empathy over the poets is described by the terms as pakas. For example, Draksha Paka, Narikela Paka, Kapitta Paka, etc. Which means, Draksha Paka means it is very much like the juice enjoyed by taking up grapes. Without peeling anything, you can straight away enjoy the juice of the grape. That is the Paka of Kalidasa. With regard to Bharavi, people used to say Narikela Paka. That means you have to peel the skin of the coconut, and then once again you have to break the shell of the coconut and enjoy the juice of it. So you have to make some strain. And Kapitta Paka is something that Kapitta means wood apple. That when you are straight away taking it, it may not be tasty. You will have to add something like sugar or something like that and then eat it. So like that, people have classified the poetic merits also, and in that category, Kalidasa is held as a person who makes you enjoy like grape, his writings as eating grapes. That's why Drakshapaka is attributed to him. And his style, see, it is called Vaidarbhi style. So Vaidarbhi is a style followed in Vidarbha country, which is held high in those days by the Alankarikas, the rhetoricians. He is noted for his suggestiveness also. So suggestion means dhuni. That is in the earlier literature, earlier modules, we had come across the author Anandavardhana, who has explained what is dhvani. Dhvani means suggestion, which has got an inner meaning, which is not explained through words or anything, but it could be understood only by the reader, a connoisseur, who is called as Sahridaya. So Kalidasa is best known for his simile and exactly apt and striking similes are attributed to him. See, his similes may be from grammar or from any shastras. Therefore, Upama Kalidasasya is the attribute to him. He is like Wordsworth with regard to the expression of nature or the description of nature. Now we come to another poet by name Ashwagosha. His work is Soundarananda. In it, he has given the story of the conversion by Buddha of Nanda, Buddha's stepmother. We come across another poet during the Kavya period, first phase of Kavya period. He is Buddhaghosa. The story of Buddha, with slight variations from the one which has been narrated by Ashwagosha, is described by the poet Buddhaghosa in his Kavya called Padya Chudamani in 10 cantos. The language has great simplicity and charm and bears close similarity to the style of Kalidasa and Ashwagosha. He may be assigned to the close of the 4th century AD. Next, we come across beautiful poems written in the inscriptions. This is the most neglected area in the literature, especially Kavya literature. We come across lot of poets actually who had contributed prashastis, who had written even the documents in a poetic way. These are all perhaps kept in the archaeological department, which had not come to the department of Sanskrit. But yet, there are 2 or 3 references with regard to the inscriptions, poetic inscriptions of poetic value, which had been recorded in the history of Sanskrit literature. Of course, there are many more of poets and poetries in the inscriptions. As for example, you find some inscription, Fleet's collection of Indian inscriptions talk about 18 inscriptions of importance modelled after the Kavya style. These inscriptions range from 350 to 550 AD. Girnar and Nasik inscriptions belong to the very early period of the 2nd century AD. Therefore, in the inscriptions also you find the poetry embedded in it. The expressions are found there. With all that, we must come to know that the poetry first emanated from Valmiki, because he is considered to be the Adi Kavi. He is the trendsetter to all the poets, including Kalidasa. Most of his narrations inspired many poets. And similes and other alankaras, Rupaka, that is metaphorical expressions, Atishayokti, that is hyperbole, and so many other alankaras, which you are now talking about with all the definitions and all, are handled by Valmiki himself. Though there was no correct definition even during his time, the definers of the alankaras have taken examples from Valmiki. So, from Adikavi Valmiki, we actually begin the Kavya period, but yet Ramayana has been held as the Itihasa, therefore brought under the classical period. The Kavya period starts with Ashwagosha, Kalidasa and others, and it continues even today. In the next module, we will find out how many poets who followed Kalidasa and others have contributed the verse, and what are all their works and the contents also. Thank you.